The hospital corridors gleamed under fluorescent lights, yet the air felt heavy with unspoken tension. Emily Warren, a dedicated nurse known for her compassion and steady hands, adjusted her pale blue uniform as she hurried to her shift. Her steps were slightly slower these days. Her growing belly made movement difficult, but her spirit remained unshaken. She had worked at St. Ainsley Medical Center for 8 years, through countless sleepless nights, emergencies, and heartbreaks. But everything changed the moment Dr. Adrian Holt took over as head administrator. Adrian was young, ambitious, and coldly efficient, a man who valued appearances over empathy. To him, perfection wasn't in skill or heart, but in control, in spotless image. When he saw Emily struggling to fasten her uniform one morning, his sharp eyes narrowed with irritation rather than concern. "You're representing this hospital, Nurse Warren," he said curtly, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "And right now you don't look professional." Emily blinked in disbelief. "Sir, I'm pregnant." "The uniform?" "I don't care about excuses," he cut her off. "You can take time off until you decide to prioritize your appearance. We can't have patients doubting the hospital standards." It wasn't suggestion. It was dismissal. Emily stood frozen as the man she once admired for his brilliance stripped her of her dignity. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. With trembling hands, she removed her ID badge, placed it on his desk, and walked away. No advice, no explanations, only silence. Months passed. Life wasn't kind, but Emily was stronger than she'd ever realized. She gave birth to a baby boy, Samuel, and worked tirelessly from home, offering remote consultations, taking night shifts at small clinics, and studying management courses online. Her nights were long, but every time she looked at her son, she felt purpose. Then came an unexpected email. A position open for a healthcare consultant in a large investment firm. Her qualifications, experience, and resilience impressed them. Within a year, she rose quickly, her insight in medical systems becoming invaluable. By the 3rd year, Emily wasn't just surviving. She was thriving. She had built connections, learned the language of finance and leadership, and earned the respect of powerful investors who believed in her vision for better, more humane health care. When St. Ainsley Medical Center, Dr. Holt's pride, sank into debt and scandal after multiple lawsuits over mistreatment, those same investors saw potential where others saw disaster. They acquired the failing hospital, restructured it, and appointed a new CEO. On a crisp Monday morning, the staff gathered anxiously in the conference room for the announcement. The doors opened and silence fell. Dr. Holt straightened his tie, ready to impress whoever the new management had sent. But when Emily walked in, elegant in a tailored suit, her calm authority radiating through the room, his confident smirk collapsed into disbelief. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice steady. "I'm Emily Warren, your new chief executive officer." The room erupted in whispers. Adrian's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but Emily raised her hand gently. "I believe," she continued, "that professionalism isn't about appearance. It's about integrity, compassion, and the ability to stand tall when the world underestimates you. I learned that lesson here." Her gaze lingered on Adrian, not with vengeance, but quiet triumph. Under her leadership, everything changed. The staff felt seen again. Patients were treated with kindness, not as numbers. The hospital transformed from a place of fear into one of healing and pride. But as Emily walked through those familiar corridors, she couldn't help but feel the ghosts of the past. The humiliation, the loneliness, the night she walked out under the weight of shame. Now, every step she took echoed power and redemption. And just when she thought the past had settled behind her, one late evening, a knock sounded at her office door. "Come in," she said, glancing up from the report she was reviewing. The door creaked open, and there he was, Dr. Adrian Holt. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the ticking wall clock filled the room, each second amplifying the tension between them. Adrian looked older, his once polished confidence replaced by something unfamiliar, hesitation. His lab coat hung loosely. His eyes carried sleepless shadows. He wasn't the untouchable man she remembered. "Emily," he began, his voice low, cautious. I wasn't sure if you'd see me. She looked up slowly, setting her pen down. You're still part of this hospital, Dr. Holt. Of course I'd see you. He swallowed hard, stepping further inside. You've done remarkable things here. Everyone's talking about it. The staff, the patients, even the board. He forced a smile that faltered halfway. I wanted to congratulate you. Emily's expression didn't change. Thank you, but I doubt you came just to congratulate me. Adrian hesitated before sitting down across from her, his movements uncertain. You're right, I didn't. He rubbed his hands together, searching for words. Emily, I owe you an apology. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. 3 years late, but go on. He looked up, his gaze almost pleading. I was wrong. Back then, I thought running this hospital meant controlling everything. Every face, every step, every uniform. I convinced myself I was upholding standards, but I was just feeding my ego. I treated people like tools instead of lives. And you, his voice cracked slightly, you didn't deserve what I did to you. Emily's lips parted, but she didn't interrupt. She wanted to hear him. I lost everything after you left, he continued quietly. My credibility, my team's trust, even my confidence. When the lawsuits came, I tried to fight them, but the board stopped listening. It turns out, appearances don't save hospitals. People do. He gave a bitter laugh. Ironic, isn't it? The woman I threw out for looking unprofessional became the one who saved everything I built. Silence settled between them like thick fog. Finally, Emily spoke, her tone calm but sharp. Do you know what hurt the most, Adrian? It wasn't losing my job. It was realizing that someone in your position, a man with influence and brilliance, chose humiliation over empathy. I looked up to you once. Adrian lowered his head. I know, and I destroyed that. Emily leaned back in her chair, eyes distant for a moment. When you told me I looked unprofessional, I cried in the parking lot. I sat in my car for hours wondering if I was really not enough anymore. But that night, I decided I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. She paused, her voice softening slightly. In a strange way, you pushed me toward everything I am now. He looked at her, his eyes glistening. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I didn't offer it, she replied gently, though not cruelly. Forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you grow into. Maybe one day, but not tonight. Adrian nodded, swallowing the weight of her words. He stood, ready to leave, but hesitated at the door. If you ever need my help, in any capacity. I'll call you, she said simply. After he left, Emily sat in silence, staring at the empty chair he had occupied. The memories swirled around her. The days she was fired, the lonely nights, her son's first cry. It felt like another lifetime. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts again. This time it was Clara, the head nurse, and one of Emily's closest allies. Everything okay, ma'am? Clara asked, stepping in with a cautious smile. Emily nodded faintly. Yes, just ghosts in the past. Clara chuckled. We all have those. But you got something better than ghosts now. A board meeting at 7 and a full war renovation under your name. Emily smiled. Don't remind me. She stood, gathering her files. Tell the staff I'll be doing rounds before the meeting. As she walked down the hall, nurses greeted her warmly. Patients smiled when they saw her. The hospital that once felt cold now pulsed with life. She paused by the pediatric ward, watching a young nurse hold a baby. Tiny, fragile, but full of fight. Emily's chest tightened with emotion. She thought of Samuel, now 3 years old, waiting for her at home. His laughter had become the rhythm of her life, the melody that guided her through chaos. Just as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I meant what I said. I'd like a chance to make things right. Adrian. Emily stared at the screen for a long moment before locking it. Some wounds didn't need reopening. Some lessons were enough on their own. Later that evening, the boardroom filled with voices. Investors from across the country had flown in to discuss expansion plans. Emily presented with grace and conviction, her words painting a vision of a hospital system rooted in care and humanity. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. One of the investors, an older gentleman with a sharp eye, leaned forward. "Ms. Warren, you've turned a dying facility into a national model. We'd like to offer you control over our next acquisition, 5 more hospitals in the region." Her heart skipped. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. But before she could respond, her phone vibrated again, this time her nanny calling. "Ms. Warren," came the frantic voice on the other end. "It's Samuel. He's running a fever, and he's asking for you." Emily's professional mask cracked for a second. "I'll be right there," she said, excusing herself with an apologetic nod to the board, as she rushed through the parking lot under the cold night sky. The city lights blurred around her. Her mind raced with worry, but also with a strange realization how fragile everything truly was. She arrived home to find her little boy bundled in blankets, cheeks flushed, eyes watery, but smiling when he saw her. "Mommy," he whispered weakly. Emily knelt beside him, pressing her forehead against his. "I'm here, baby. Always." As she tended to him, the weight of her dual life settled on her shoulders. The CEO and the mother, the healer and the survivor. But she wouldn't trade any of it. Hours later, after Samuel drifted asleep, she sat by his bedside, scrolling through her emails. One subject line caught her eye: "Urgent patient transfer request from Dr. Adrian Holt." Curious, she opened it. It wasn't a professional note. It was personal. Asterisk Emily, I know this may be too much to ask, but my father was just admitted to your hospital. Terminal stage. I didn't know where else to turn. Please help him. Asterisk. Her hand hovered over the keyboard. Memories flooded her mind, his arrogance, his dismissal, the humiliation, but also his apology, his sincerity. Emily exhaled slowly. Some circles of life were cruelly poetic. She typed a brief response. "I'll make sure he's cared for." When she walked into the ICU the next morning, the familiar hum of machines filled the air. Adrian stood by his father's bed, looking smaller than she'd ever seen him. When he turned and saw her, gratitude and pain collided in his eyes. He whispered, "Thank you for coming." Emily adjusted the patient's chart, her voice quiet but firm. "No one gets turned away here, Dr. Holt. Not anymore." Their eyes met. No anger, no pity, just a mutual understanding of how far they'd both come, and how much further they still had to go. Outside, the sun broke through the hospital windows, spilling light across the sterile floor, as if blessing everything that was once broken. But as Emily walked out of the ICU, her phone buzzed again, this time from the head of operations. Something urgent about the hospital's ownership papers. Something that didn't quite add up. Her calm expression shifted slightly, curiosity replacing serenity as she made her way toward her office, unaware that the past wasn't done rewriting itself yet. Emily's heels echoed against the polished floor as she made her way swiftly down the corridor. Her phone pressed her ear. "What do you mean the ownership papers don't add up?" she asked, her tone calm but edged with authority. On the other end, the head of operations, Mr. Leary, sounded uneasy. "Ma'am, I've gone through the archives. The final transfer documents, the ones that gave you full executive authority. There's an addendum filed a few weeks ago. It's not signed by your legal counsel. It's signed by someone else." Emily's brow furrowed. "Who?" There was a pause. "Dr. Adrian Holt." She stopped walking. The corridor fell silent around her, save for the distant beeping of monitors and footsteps echoing down another hallway. "That's impossible," she said. "Dr. Holt hasn't had administrative access for months. Those documents were sealed." "That's what I thought," Leary replied. "But it seems he had help. Someone in the finance department may have been working with him. We're still tracing it." Emily's hand tightened around the phone. "Keep digging," she said, and in the call, her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from a sharp, rising sense of betrayal. She turned into her office, the door closing behind her with a soft thud. For a moment, she just stood there, her reflection staring back on the glass walls. The woman who rebuilt an empire, who clawed her way from ruin to redemption. Now, someone was trying to take it all away again. Her computer screen flickered to life as she began pulling records, tracing signatures, scanning timestamps. Every keystroke echoed with the rhythm of purpose. The evidence was clear. Adrian had filed a hidden clause, a transfer of joint control under the pretext of emergency restructuring. If executed, he could reclaim partial authority over the hospital's assets. But why now? She barely noticed a knock on her door until it opened. Adrian stood there hesitant, his eyes shadowed with guilt. "You knew," Emily said softly, without looking up. He closed the door behind him, his expression tense. "I didn't want you to find out like this." Her gaze lifted, cold and unwavering. "Then how should I have found out? Through a board vote stripping me of the seat I earned." Adrian exhaled slowly, his shoulders heavy. "It's not what you think. I wasn't trying to take anything from you. The board, some of the old investors, wanted me back in. They said the hospital needed both of us to lead the expansion. I only signed to keep them from selling it to a private corporation. If I refused, they would have gutted everything you built." Emily's heart thudded. "And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't want to risk you walking away. You've already done that once. I didn't want to lose you again." The confession hung in the air, tangled between truth and manipulation. Emily stood, crossing her arms. "Adrian, you don't get to use loyalty as leverage. I rebuilt this hospital from ashes while you hid behind apologies. If you want to protect it, you should have trusted me, not gone behind my back." He stepped closer. "I did it because I trust you more than anyone. But the board doesn't. They still see you as the nurse who got lucky. I thought if I stood beside you, they'd finally see your worth." Her voice dropped, quiet but cutting. "My worth doesn't need your endorsement." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the city below filled the silence. Adrian looked at her, the same woman he'd once humiliated, now commanding, unyielding, every inch the leader he could never become. Finally, Emily sat down again, her tone steady. "If you're sincere about protecting this place, then prove it. I want your signature, rescinding that clause. Tonight." Adrian hesitated, conflict flashing across his face. Then, after a long pause, he nodded. "You'll have it." He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, she spoke again. "Adrian," she said softly, "you can't fix what's broken by hiding it. You heal it by facing it." He looked back, his eyes glistening with something between regret and respect. "I know. I'm learning that from you." When the door closed, Emily let out a slow breath. The storm inside her settled into focus. She wasn't angry anymore, just resolute. Hours passed. The city's lights shimmered outside her window like distant stars. The email came through at midnight. Asterisk rescission signed. Authority fully reinstated. Adrian, asterisk. She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. The hospital was safe. For now. But the next morning brought an unexpected twist. A news notification flashed on her phone. St. Ainsley Medical Center wins National Humanitarian Award for Healthcare Reform. The ceremony would be held that evening, and Emily Warren was invited as the guest of honor. Her staff erupted with joy when she arrived. "You did it, ma'am," Clara said, practically bouncing with excitement. "You're the heart of this place." Emily smiled faintly. "No," she said. "We all are." By evening, the auditorium shimmered with golden lights and camera flashes. The crowd was filled with journalists, philanthropists, and doctors from across the country. Emily stood backstage, waiting for her name to be called. When she finally stepped onto stage, applause thundered through the room. The host handed her the microphone, smiling. "Ms. Warren, you've turned tragedy into triumph. What message do you have for the world tonight?" Emily looked out over the crowd, her eyes glimmering under the lights. She took a deep breath. "I once believed that power was about control," she began. "That to lead, you had to look perfect, act perfect, be perfect. But I was wrong. True strength doesn't come from how we look. It comes from how we rise after being broken." The audience listened, captivated. I was cast out of this very hospital for being unprofessional, because I was pregnant and imperfect. I thought my life was over. But what I learned was this: every setback is an invitation to rebuild stronger. Every insult is fuel for something greater. And every person who doubts you is proof that you're onto something powerful. She paused, scanning the crowd. To every nurse, every woman, every dreamer who's ever been told they don't belong, remember this: dignity is not given by others. It's claimed by how you stand when no one stand with you. Applause erupted, but she wasn't done. And to those who once tried to break me, thank you, because you taught me that grace is the loudest form of victory. In the audience, Adrian sat silently in the last row, his eyes wet. When she stepped off the stage, he didn't approach her. He didn't need to. She had already spoken everything he needed to hear. Later that night, Emily stood outside the hospital under the stars, the award gleaming faintly in her hand. The same building that once witnessed her humiliation now carried her name on its highest plaque, Emily Warren Medical Center. She smiled to herself. It wasn't revenge that filled her. It was peace. Her phone buzzed with a message from home, a video of Samuel laughing in his pajamas, waving at the camera. "Good job, Mommy. You did it." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "We did, baby. We did." Behind her, the hospital lights glowed against the dark sky, a beacon of healing, compassion, and resilience. As she looked up, the faint reflection of her own face in the glass smiled back, no longer the nurse who was dismissed, but the woman who redefined what leadership looked like. The wind carried the city sounds around her, ambulances, laughter, footsteps, all blending into one steady hum of life. And in that sound, Emily heard her story, not as an ending, but as a beginning of something far greater. Because sometimes life doesn't give you second chances. You create them yourself.